Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Over the weekend, as you guys probably are already aware, I made several reactionary videos to Douglas Murray's appearance on Joe Rogan, debating not only just Joe Rogan, but also Dave Smith. If you haven't listened to the entire conversation, why in the world have you not? It's definitely well worth your time. It is somewhat divided the internet quite a bit. And Dave Smith, even though Douglas Murray has actually moved on, Dave is actually trying to still maintain any credibility he's got left because Douglas really annihilated him. And as the man of integrity Douglas Murray is, he's moved on, done other interviews, and he hasn't really batted an eyelid since his appearance on Joe Rogan. And I wonder whether or not he will say something in response to all the backlash. But I don't think he really cares because he was saying the truth. Because one of the main points that a lot of people seemingly point out that is also going viral over on X at the moment is how Douglas points out that there's lots of these bad faith actors that come on and say, I'm not an expert, I'm just asking questions, but let's look over here for a second. What's going over here? But then when they get called out by real historians and real people that know what they're talking about, they're like, oh, I'm just asking questions. I don't really know what I'm actually talking about at all. But they sound like they're actually experts and they get put on these major platforms to spread their dangerous information, especially when it comes to history. Science is one thing, but when it comes to history that's already happened, you've got to tell it. You've got to tell the truth, essentially. And one of the bad faith actors that Douglas Murray pointed out that Joe and Dave Smith happen to defend quite vigorously is the likes of Daryl Cooper. If you don't know who Daryl Cooper is, you're about to get to know more about him today because that's the point of this video. Douglas Murray was right about Daryl Cooper and Ian Carroll. He just didn't have all the receipts at his fingertips, which lots of people and their critique was of Douglas Murray. They wish he had all of the receipts with him. He could have more than likely have brought it up. Like, it's not hard to actually find what Daryl Cooper said, but according to Daryl Cooper, Churchill is the main villain of World War II. Churchill, yes, the greatest Briton, the one that actually saved the West from the likes of Hitler, is apparently the worst villain in World War II. And he wasn't being hyperbolic. He wasn't trying to make this statement and go, oh, I'm just joking. No. He was saying it and stating it as if it was a fact. His opinion, maybe, but he'd go on these podcasts and he'll constantly say it. And that is actually really dangerous. You're more than welcome to have an opinion. You're more than welcome to write a book of why you think that Churchill was the greatest villain of World War II instead of Hitler or Stalin or anyone else that was part of World War II that was actually a real villain. You're more than welcome to write a book about that. But when it comes to actually sharing on the largest platform in the world and have no pushback at all, that is a problem. That is dangerous. And that's what Douglas Murray was trying to point out, with which Joe and Dave seemingly went, nah, he's not saying that. He's not saying the thing you think that he's saying. He's saying something else. He's meaning something different. But yet we've got receipts. And that's one of the great things about the internet is you can always go back. And if someone has said something on the internet, you can always find it. And so get this, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lady on X named Catherine Brodsky. This is her work, not mine. Mysterious Cat. So go check her out. She has gone through and created a receipt, a thread of receipts for each and every one of us. Now, before we do get into all the receipts, I want to show you this video. Have a watch.
You say, I've decided that Churchill is the bad guy in
That's not
World
what he
War
said.
II.
That's not what he said. Daryl Cooper's not said that. What he said was he jokes with his friend Jocko, who's an Anglo-Saxon. He jokes with him. You know, I think that Churchill was the secret villain of World War II. And what he's saying is by Churchill's actions, the war escalated. He's not saying anything.
He's not just asking questions then, is he?
No, but
he's got a point
the claim
of view.
isn't that he's just asking questions. Yeah, he has a point of view.
You can explain this better. He literally says
yes, he
he's
said
joking.
in the comment, he goes, listen, I'm being hyperbolic. And then he once again disclaimed, he goes, and I'm not claiming Churchill committed the most atrocities or was the worst part, but in many ways, I do view him as the chief villain, as my hyperbolic.
So Joe Rogan's going, that's not what Daryl Cooper said. Winston Churchill isn't the greatest villain, but yet you can have a look over on his X account. Time for a Churchill thread. Time for a Churchill thread. Let's do this. Why I think Churchill was a chief villain of World War II. Right. So much for the hyperbolic statements, right? So if it was just a joke, according to Joe Rogan and Dave Smith, this hyperbolic nature, wouldn't you say, oh, this is just a joke? Or this is just hyperbole? This is just me being hyperbolic by saying this, right? I don't actually mean it, but I'm just going to say it. I think, in my opinion, that Churchill was chief villain of World War II. But no, he pinned it to his X account, meaning it's a statement that he's made, meaning that he thinks that it's fact. Then he goes, I know that sounds like hyperbole. Right. I know it sounds like hyperbole, but guess what? Here is a list of things that I think Churchill did that contributed to him being the worst villain of them all, which means it wasn't hyperbole, was it? It was actually you creating a more than an opinion. You're trying to make it as fact. And that is dangerous. Douglas pointed it out. And you saw Joe and Dave try and defend it and say, look over here. That's what the far right does so very well. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if they get caught in a lie, they double down in the lie. Oh, I didn't say that. I said this. I meant this. Oh, I said this, but I really meant this. And even if it is a downright utter lie, we see Candace Owens doing this very, very well. They've created this enormous career off the back of it by being provocative in these statements. For Candace Owens, it's now the Jews did it. Jews are responsible for everything. Or Daryl Cooper with this pseudo-historical bent trying to make the good guys that we know all throughout history, they're actually the good guys. No, they're the bad guys. And they prop up Hitler. So he's now becoming a Hitler apologist. Hitler is apparently the good guy in World War II, according to Daryl Cooper. Because guess what? Churchill was the bad guy. He contributed a lot to the deaths of World War II. Oh, but get this. Here's something else. Hitler never said anything in public that was anti-Semitic, but he wrote an entire bloody book, Mein Kampf. Have you read it? I don't think he has. Then he had these public statements, which we have footage of. Isn't history amazing? You actually have this stuff, but they're trying to do a magic trick, but this time with information. Look here for 5 seconds. Can you focus with me for 5 seconds on this piece of information? Guess what? The art of deception. Switch around. It's actually this. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? What were you looking at before wasn't actually real, because over here, that's the real thing. Even though it's totally wrong and unacceptable, where the real thing is right here. The truth is right here, but no, look over here. Look to the lie. We see Jake Shields do this very, very well. We see Ian Carroll do the exact same thing. And the problem is when you got these conspiracy theorists, pseudo-historian nut jobs that come on to Joe Rogan, even though Joe Rogan is curious and wants to learn more about him, fantastic. But actually have someone come on and refute what they're saying. Have a little bit more pushback. There's none of that. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It gets better. Catherine Brodsky goes, here's another problem. Martyr made. Democracy is a disease. Tyranny is the cure. He said that November 9th, 2019. Guess what? The internet is forever. Oh, dear. And number 2, Community Notes had to get involved with this. Martyr made. Elon Musk shared it. Hitler tried again, going on the radio to broadcast a call for peace directly to the British people. Right. I do not recall him doing any of that. He would give back parts of Poland that he invaded. So why would he do that? The whole point of World War II is We went to war because he invaded Poland that were not majority German. Well, that's a bit hard. And would work with the other powers to reach an acceptable solution to the Jewish problem. He was ignored. Now, Marta May, Daryl Cooper, has I think, 6-part series about the Israel-Palestine conflict. He's got no idea about any of it. So if he's doing this with Churchill, imagine what he's going to do with the Israel-Palestine conflict. And community notes goes, grossly misleading. The tweet refers to the appeal to reason by Hitler in July 1940. By this time, Hitler had invaded 2 direct allies of Britain, Poland, and France, broken multiple treaties, and was killing Jews, Poles, and others. Then he goes, it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. This is like exactly the problem with Daryl Cooper and many others, where he says exactly what Joe Rogan and Dave Smith sworn he doesn't by gaslighting us. And that's what the right are doing to us quite often now. Exactly what the left were doing. It's no different. It's just the same insanity, but this time they're messing with historical facts and historical, actually good people. He was also kicked out for quite some time and Chamberlain came in. So I don't know if you've forgotten about that, but they actually begged Churchill to come back because they were losing so much. Maybe read a little bit more about history. And then Ryan Keyworth goes, have you read any of David Irving's books, specific Hitler's War? And what did you think of it? I have not read it yet. Yes, it's a great book. Hitler's War. Trying to make a case for Hitler trying to take over the world and a case for Nazism. That's what the book's about. Yeah, it's a great book. So democracy is a threat. Tyranny is the cure. Okay, that's the kind of person you want to have on Joe Rogan's show, the #1 podcast in the world. Wow. Billboard Chris goes, good thread. Here's one more to add. If you're having a bad day, just remember that the Trump shooter is currently wandering around hell looking for Hitler while the 2 guys, Kyle Rittenhouse, drop figure out of how to break the news to him. This guy's actually nuts. And he was on Joe Rogan. Also, Tucker Carlson's show. Have a watch of this. This is what started the whole thing, I think, with people realized he's actually really dangerous.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. You know, Germany, look, they put themselves into a position, and Adolf Hitler is chiefly responsible for this, but his whole regime is responsible for it, that when they went into the East in 1941, they launched a war where they were completely unprepared to deal with the millions and millions of prisoners of war, of local political prisoners and so forth that they were going to have to handle. They went in with no plan for that. And they just threw these people into camps, and millions of people ended up dead there. You know, you have like letters as early as July, August 1941 from commandants of these makeshift camps that they're setting up for these millions of people who are surrendering or people they're rounding up. And so it's 2 months after, a month or two after Barbarossa was launched. And they're writing back to the high command in Berlin saying, we can't feed these people. We don't have the food to feed these people. And one of them actually says, rather than wait for them all to slowly starve this winter, wouldn't it be more humane to just finish them off quickly now?
Douglas Murray was right all along about Daryl Cooper, Ian Carroll, and countless others. He's seen this all before. He's spoken about it before as well. And if we're not careful and we continue platforming these people without any pushback at all, there's no pushback, because He's allowed to say this on the #1 platform in the world with very vulnerable minds. And there's no pushback. There's no one else on there to debate him. He doesn't want to debate anyone because he can't. So instead, he goes on these podcasts, he spreads the lies as his personal opinion, keeping in mind that there's so many other people out there that will just share their personal opinion, but it won't be in the truth. It's just my personal opinion, guys. I'm not against people having an opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. You're allowed to have your say. But when it's put out on the grand stage and acted as if like it's fact, without any pushback at all, that's what Douglas Murray was saying is wrong. It shouldn't happen that way. You should actually listen to the experts in history, the historical experts that know a little bit about history more than the likes of Daryl Cooper that's picked up a book one day and he's gone, oh, I like that. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a podcaster and a writer, and I'm going to gaslight the living hell out of people when I'm found out. That's exactly what they're very good at, just gaslighting people instead of owning up to the fact they got no idea what the hell they're talking about. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care. You be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.